We begin the show with a Spectator Australia legend, the great Professor Ian Plimer, whose hobby appears to be tossing stones at the net zero glass houses. Ian, welcome to Spectator TV.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, readers, for your comments.
Well, you are definitely one of our most popular authors. And Ian, you've written a piece this week in the magazine titled "Earth is Already at Net Zero," which you follow with a warning that says the climate cult will cost us all dearly. Now, that has put some nasty dents in the glass houses of net zero. Can you please explain how the Earth is already sitting at net zero? Because we've got a whole stack of Just Stop Oil kids saying that that's not true and throwing orange paint everywhere.
Well, we have the beauty of satellites, and we can measure things with satellites. And we can measure the number of trees on the planet with satellites. And we've done that over the whole planet. Now, over countries like Canada, which doesn't have many people, but a lot of trees, especially in the southern part of Canada, we can measure the number of trees, and then we can measure the amount of carbon dioxide that Canadians produce from burning petroleum, from coal, from smelting, from refining, much of which is done in Ontario and New Brunswick. And we can then do a sum, and we work out that in Canada, the trees suck up far more carbon dioxide than the Canadians emit. And that's the process of photosynthesis. This is where plant food in the air is used together with water and nutrients from the soil to make forests grow. So in Canada, they're at net zero, despite the fact that they pay a tax on carbon emissions. We do the same for the US, and the US figures actually surprised me that the US is also at net zero. Australia is also at net zero, and we have the advantage of being a very large country, a continent, and we have plants that are photosynthesizing on our grasslands, in our crops, on our rangelands, in our forests, and also photosynthetic microorganisms in the continental shelf areas. And these suck up about 10 times as much carbon dioxide than is emitted by Australian industry, by Australian citizens. And then the figure which really did surprise me is that when you look at the whole world, and that includes China, that we've counted the number of trees in the whole world. We can measure how much carbon dioxide is emitted by burning coal and by burning petroleum, because you can measure the tonnes which are actually used. We can measure how much carbon dioxide is emitted from smelting, because you know how many tonnes of metal are produced. And we work out that the planet is already at net zero. Vegetation is sucking up more carbon dioxide than the planet's humans are emitting. So we're already at net zero. Now, that creates a scientific problem. Well, where the hell does the excess carbon dioxide come from? Well, it comes out of the oceans. About 3% of all emissions on planet Earth are from humans. The rest come out of the oceans. Some comes out of mammals breathing out, like ourselves. I'm breathing out 4% carbon dioxide, and some of it comes out of volcanoes. Now, if carbon dioxide was such a big pollutant and such a poisonous gas, if I'm breathing in 0.04% carbon dioxide, and I came and gave you a kiss, Alexandra, I would be breathing out poison onto you, and you would drop dead. Now, you might drop dead from bad breath, but you wouldn't drop dead from carbon dioxide. So you can do some very simple calculations to show that we are being fed an enormous load of rubbish. And to make matters worse, if you look back in the past, we can see from looking at the past that every time we've had an ice age, we've had more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than now. So it's clear that carbon dioxide cannot drive global warming. And you can't dismiss the past, because if you do, by saying, and I've had this said to me, oh, yes, that's the past, you geologists deal with stuff in the past, but we're dealing with the present. If you use that argument, you then have to say, oh, wait a minute, the laws of physics and chemistry in the past were different from the laws of physics and chemistry now. So really, this is the greatest scientific and financial scam that we've ever been fed. It's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt the average person who is now suffering terribly from inflation and high cost of living. And much of that is just a simple cost of energy. And energy makes everything cheap or expensive.